We need to empower smallholder farmers. I think it will go a long way in solving our own problem first.
Africa brings its tradition and culture. It's able not only just to feed itself, but is prospered enough to be able to feed other people.
There is so much in agriculture if you unpack it, There is money in agriculture.
Welcome to State of Africa. I'm Jeff Motte, and today we are tackling one of the continent's greatest opportunities and greatest challenges. Now, Africa holds 60% of the world's uncultivatable arable land and has the youngest population on the planet. This unique combination means the continent could not only feed itself, but also become the world's breadbasket, creating jobs, wealth, and resilience in the process. But how do you unlock that potential? What policy, innovation, and investment shifts are needed to move from promise to progress? Now, to help us explore these critical questions, I'm joined by an exceptional panel today. I'm joined by Kevin Kamau, CEO of Tukalime, Dr. Edward Mabaya, Research Professor at Cornell University, and Maria Olorundare. Dr. Ed, Africa holds 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land. How do we explain this paradox of having the land, having the resource, having the labor, yet not being able to be sufficiently food secure?
In Africa, we produce about 1 to 1.5 tons per hectare of cereals. The rest of the world is producing about 5 to 6 tons per hectare. So there's this thing that we call the productivity gap, where Africa, on the same amount of land, has not been able to increase agricultural productivity. Now, you can ask the deeper question of why is Africa not able to produce at the same level as the rest of the world? And that's a very complex problem. Just to make a long story short, I would say that the answer lies in two particular areas. One is the low use of productivity enhancing technologies. So not to use too much jargon here, Africa does not use too many of these purchased inputs. For example, when the rest of the world is using about 140 kgs of fertilizer per hectare, Africa uses only 24 kgs per hectare. So you're talking about very little use of improved inputs. It's the same as mechanization, same in irrigation, and same with improved seed, an area that I'm very particularly interested in. So we have not really adopted the use of these yield boosting, yield enhancing technologies that allow us to get more productivity on the same amount of land. It is really my interest to not necessarily expand the rest of Africa into agriculture, but for us to be able to utilize that land that's under agriculture now to produce more food on the same amount of land.
Let me go to a man and woman who are on the ground making this happen. Kevin, I want to come to you first. You're the CEO of Tukalime, and as you got into this particular space, you realized a gap in the agricultural value chain. What gap is Tukalime trying to fill at this point?
One of the biggest issues that Africa is having is it becomes very expensive to produce per acre. You're talking about, if I can use potatoes as an SI unit or as a point of reference, you find that to produce a ton of potatoes in Europe, or let's say the Netherlands, is about 27 cents. While in Kenya, it's about 55 cents to the dollar. So that is double. The way to be able to do this is by unlocking economies of scale to bring in mechanization, to bring in irrigation and what have you. It becomes very expensive. For example, to drill a borehole on 1 acre of land in Kenya is about $20,000. So you find that is it going to bring the reward in terms of productivity on the land, or is it going to be too expensive to do to unlock whatever you need for that land? So for Tukalime, by aggregating this land, like for example, right now we are farming on about 3,000 acres. We are able to produce at a cheaper level, thus achieving the objectives that we are trying out there to make.
But Mariam, I want to come to you as well, because you're literally joining this show from the farm. So this is literally what you are doing. And I want to speak to this issue as well. Let's talk about your venture, because you're both in the farm. You're making sure that the farm not only is producing, crop, but you're also making sure that you see it through the value chain to the plate. Please introduce your venture also and the gap that you saw in the market in Nigeria.
We have a 15-acre agroecological farm, and on this farm, we try to do a bit of everything. It's an integrated farm, agroforestry. We have fruit trees, we have shea butter trees, we have vegetables, we have animal husbandry, fish, rabbits, a bit of everything, because we're trying to go back to the traditional model way of doing things. And how do we synergize both the tradition and the modern enterprises that are available for farmers? So on the farm, we tend to show that it is possible to go traditional, and it is possible to also modernize it. And in that, you're looking at integration, you're looking at regenerative agriculture, and you're producing better. And the word is producing more with less.
When you look at the barriers we're talking about, there are quite a number, a laundry list of barriers in terms of just making sure Africa becomes the world's breadbasket. I want us to go there because we've been talking about how we can be food sufficient within the continent. How do we become the world's breadbasket so that the world is turning to Africa to feed the globe? How do we get there? What barrier do you think is the biggest in us get to that particular level, Kevin?
Number one, identify where our competitive advantage is. Number two, fix policy. Number three, removes barriers of trade. I don't understand why, and we've spoken about this, and I know this is also a stickler point. Mm-hmm. Why do we need visas to travel within Africa when it's already hard for us to fly outside Africa? We should, we are, should I say, soldiers of the same struggle? The African problem is almost homogeneous across the different borders, So there are certain things that we can fix that makes things easier. I should be able to trade in Tanzania, Uganda seamlessly, as a way they should also be able to trade with me in Kenya. I should be talking to Mariam about shea butter if I have a market in Kenya, and the logistics in terms of moving those goods to Kenya should not be, like I'm selling a kidney. So that's what I'm saying. It is a cocktail of many things, but let's start by, I think if I could say, let's start first of all by loving ourselves, by understanding that we do have a competitive advantage globally. And then number two, let's fix the policies that do not require, building crazy infrastructure. It just needs for everybody to sit around the room and see that, okay, fine. Africa can be the fruit basket, and this is how we need to approach.
Mariam, I want to come to you as well because you spoke about this particular issue and you spoke about how you're actually turning this into an agribusiness. You got into it in that particular mindset. Kevin has alluded to that as well in terms of identifying the advantage and need, and that's really thinking in an entrepreneurial kind of way. We are also cognizant of the fact that in Africa, very many farmers are smallholder farmers. How do we think about getting them into the transition from just being smallholder farmers to transitioning towards, sustainable, competitive agribusiness so that we can actually have these farms grow? Because that's what you're doing. You're training the youth in this. How do you get them to get into transition from that to an actual agribusiness?
So why don't we first identify our own needs first and say we eat a lot of potatoes, we eat rice, we eat beans, we eat this. Let us grow enough for us first before we start thinking of other people. Kelvin was talking about what it would cost for you to get from Nairobi to Lagos. I was in Nairobi recently and I know how much that was, right? But if you're telling me I have enough beans or pepper, Kenyans, they don't eat pepper. Grow the pepper for Nigerians. We'll eat it, right? And it's easy for me to move Kenya pepper into Nigeria. And it is easy for us to move potatoes that they eat to them. It makes it easy. And these are smallholder farmers doing it now. If we give them the right training and the right resources, I think they can do better. I just feel that we need to empower smallholder farmers. Even 1 acre farmer can do a whole lot. And I've seen them at the market. When they bring their onions, they bring all this cassava, you're like, you did this on your farm, on one plot of land. Imagine if we harness that energy together. I think it will go a long way in solving our own problem first before we start thinking about the world. Africa first.
Dr. Ed, I want to come to you as well, because even as you talk about what you're doing on the continent, it's good to pick insights and lessons that you can draw and bring back. And when you look at Latin America, agriculture has really, catalyzed how the economy has grown. I was speaking to one farmer from Brazil, and I was fascinated. In Brazil, they actually have a ministry dedicated to family agriculture. Farms that are run by families, a whole ministry with that one mandate. And I was like, there's so many lessons we can pick from that side and bring and implement, on the continent. What are some of those lessons globally that you can take and implement that could help us probably leapfrog some of the challenges we are facing as we try and get food sufficient as a continent?
Before Africa can, solve these particular challenges one-on-one, we really need our governments to step up and create what we call enabling environment for policy, create the environment where business can actually thrive and in some cases get out of the way, because sometimes the government is also there interrupting the sector and interrupting growth. So my secret sauce here is don't look outside. There's no magical bullet out there. These solutions are here. We need to scale up investment and we need to create the right enabling environment to make this engine moving.
Kevin, you're on the farm. You're working with young people as well. Have cultural attitudes changed in terms of, using this particular land that we have as a resource to be economically independent? Are they now looking at it differently, getting back to farming?
So we have to be able to show the youth that, look, there is so much in agriculture if you unpack it, There is money in agriculture. I honestly, and anybody, guys, feel to chime in if I'm embellishing this story. But when I do my math, agriculture is one of the most rewarding activities that you can actually make over 60-70% of what you put in, as long as you follow the protocols that are needed to be followed to get the output that you need.
We farmers need to tell the stories. We're not talking about someone telling our stories for us. We need to tell the stories for them to see that it is possible. We also need to tell them the truth. What the youth see now is they want the money right now. I want to put in 5,000 naira. I want to get 10,000 tomorrow. Farming will teach you patience. Like it will teach you serious patience. And for us to really get there, they need to learn those values that we have dropped.
Mentorship and knowledge sharing, all key in this attitude change. This conversation continues on the other side of the break. But as we go to the break, we asked you, how do you think Africa can successfully feed itself?
Africa has the capability and the capacity to feed itself. I mean, we have the biggest arable pieces of land. Most of the pieces of land across Africa are actually able to produce food crops enough to feed its population. And for Africa to get to that level, I think there is a blend of policies, there is a blend of finance, there is also the aspect of tech, which is critical to make sure we are able to get to that point.
Africa in general is definitely a continent. So I think how it can feed itself per se is by using smart agricultural practices, like smart climate changes. Like, for example, if we invest in research and development, this leads to improvement of seeds and better working grounds for the farmers, which improves the yields that which will be produced by the farmers. Hence, it produces a variety of seedlings, of croppings that will be used by the farmers, by the consumers.
Welcome back to State of Africa. Now, before the break, we unpacked some of the barriers standing in the way of Africa becoming a global food powerhouse. Now, let's look forward. We'll examine how digital tools, innovative financing models, and climate-smart approaches can transform agriculture into a sector that not only feeds Africa, but also powers inclusive economic growth. Kevin, let me come to you on this. How can we harness this particular tool? Because I think that would be also one way of capturing the youth and bringing them in as well. How can we use digital tools to be more efficient and more productive in agribusiness?
As we are talking about tools, we have to look at also like, are the tools able, are the farmers are able to access these tools that we are trying to say are a game changer, you know? But having said that, the solution, yes, have solutions that are accessible, not that are just glossy and sound good for PE and VC farms who are throwing money at a solution at this taglines. So let it be accessible. Number two is let it be farmer driven. We have to build on them in terms of are these tools accessible? Are they farmer driven in terms of the farmers are the ones that are feeding these tools? And after that, what can these tools do for us? Access to finance, insurance, and what have you.
Mariam, what's your story at this point? Have you tried exporting outside of Nigeria? If so, how has it been? If not, why? Are you planning to? What's your tale of trying to harness this particular promise?
In Nigeria, we're over 150 or 200 million. And what we are producing is not even enough within my geographical space. And that's when we talk about Trump trying to look inward. On the farm, we are looking inward. The first thing is we're going to produce the best things for our people first. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, we sell to them first. We start looking at what the gaps are and trying to fill that.
How do we go around practically strengthening this value addition so that Africa isn't just exporting their raw crops, but finished products? How do we do that practically? Because everyone speaks about why are we doing this? They can see the potential in the value addition, not yet done fully. How do we strengthen this?
So you have to show how that equates to more money in the pocket, especially for the farmer. When I look at value addition, I think doing it from the farm level is going to be cheaper than doing it here in the city, just because of there's more human capital. In terms of space, you're already doing it on the farm. You're not having to rent a space, so that can be done.
Okay, we're coming to the end of this particular conversation, but before we do that, I also want to jump to Mariam to speak on this as well, because she had alluded to the fact that they are exporting cashews, but in their raw form. Yes, we can see the value of that, and I think when you speak about Nigeria, I don't think they're short of storytelling prowess, going with Afro cinema. So on the storytelling, bucket list, I think they know how to put that together. What is lacking in terms of them seeing why they should, add value to the cashew nuts before they leave the country?
The moment they start realizing that if I have a kg of unprocessed cashew seeds and I process it, the amount I'll be selling that 1 kg might have reduced to 700 grams. It's not a problem, but you'll be selling it maybe times 2 or 3 of what you would have sold it if it was raw. So those opportunities, those centers need to be available for them to have access to and to address some of the issues that we're talking about. They just need to see that there is value in not just giving your raw materials out there, because you will buy it back and it will be more expensive when you're buying it back.
I want us to get to the last part of our conversation now. And I want to start with Dr. Ed on this one, because we've spoken a lot about the challenges, the opportunities, the solutions in this. But if we put all of this right, Dr. Ed, paint us a picture of success. We're talking about all of these things that we could put in place. In 10 years, what do you think Africa would look like if we got it right in terms of what you're discussing?
There is a lot of concerted effort across the entire continent, including the Africa Food Summit meeting that I just came out of, where governments, multilateral organizations, United Nations, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, World Bank, Agra, small organization, entrepreneurs such as Mariam, NGOs like Kevin and a few others. They're all getting together to try and solve this challenge that we know is so central to Africa's development. There's no way Africa is going to develop itself unless it can solve this challenge in agriculture. The enormity of this problem in Africa is big enough that we need significant levels of higher investments to get this going. We need to replicate the examples of success that we're already seeing on the particular continent.
On the move to Kevin on this as well. We're coming to the end of our show. Your end, you've spoken about various bottlenecks and various opportunities that are there, and you've also spoken to what's working. What's your call to action as we finish this particular show? Because after all is said and done, it's the action that gets the work done. So what's your call to action as we bring it to a close?
So my call to action is, yes, Mariam and I and our colleagues in the agricultural space can do our bit, but however, we do need those leaders who are in charge of making policy frameworks to take it as serious as it comes, to be able to fund agriculture, to be able to reduce the barriers of trade, to be able to catalyze production and value addition. And I do believe if we unlock that, it will definitely tilt the balance of trade in terms of the different countries in Africa and as a continent as a whole, and in turn employ thousands and thousands, if not millions of people into this space that, and I believe Africa is the oldest profession. I'm sorry, agriculture, sorry, is the oldest profession. And so my call to action is, let's take it seriously. Let's fund it the way it should be funded, and we shall see miracles and wonderful things happen.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to get to Mariam now because as we're talking about all about action that needs to be done, the next steps that need to be put in place for the next 5 years, the next 10, the next 50. You're on the farm. You're doing the action. What's your call to action as we bring this to a close?
We need to come together and beyond unearthing the policies that makes free trade easy, we also need to unearth the knowledge. We need to come together to share what makes us strong and unique as Africans. And that is the story we want to tell to the world outside there. You know, the crazy thing is we think when they're talking about Africa in the Western world, they are picking a country. They cluster us together. They don't care whether you're Nigerian or you're from South Africa. It is Africa. We need to start talking like that to mean that, yes, we embrace our Africanness and our problems, our solutions must be unearthed in that particular space as one and deal with it together. So that knowledge sharing must move from all borders.
Now, as we've heard today, Africa's path from farm to future is both urgent and achievable. The potential is vast, but realizing it will require bold policy shifts, investment in technology, and collaboration. Most importantly, it'll take the creativity and determination of Africa's young people who stand ready to lead. A sincere thank you to our panelists, Kevin Kamau, Dr. Edward Mabaya, and Maria Olorundare for their powerful insights. And thank you for joining us here on State of Africa. For more conversations shaping the continent's future, follow the dialogue on Aladi's social media handles. I'm Jeff Morte. Until next time, goodbye.